streaming has ruined the sacred art of waiting for a movie. Back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't just click play on a Tuesday and you could sit in your sweatpants. You had to prepare like it was an event. You got your friends together. You picked an outfit, right? And usually they were T-shirts, but you had to wait in line for hours. We talked about whether it was weather, because that was part of what we did. That was kind of a convention before the convention, because you would talk to other people, theories about the movie.
Original geek, that's who I am. Rolling 20s with my squad, we got a plan. Marvel heroes on my wall, D&D dice in hand. Original geek, across the land. Level up, never gonna give it up.
All right. Welcome to The Original Geek. This is the podcast for anyone who rolled dice in a basement, waited all night for comic book covers to download, and proudly wore the label of geek back when it could get you stuffed into a locker. Each week, we're going to dive deep into what it meant to be a geek in the 70s and 80s and how it compares to today's pop culture multiverse. We are your hosts. We are two of the Gen X survivors who didn't just watch geek culture evolve. We lived through every awkward phase. Hi, I'm Steve Scarfo.
And I'm Jeff Shaw.
No, sorry. Oops, that lore is no more. It is time for canon correction.
And sadly, my epic fail last week, it was another epic fail of mine. So I've had to do, this is my second canon correction. Steve hasn't had to do
for
one.
two.
Maybe it's because I keep correcting him during the podcast when he makes a mistake. So he hasn't had to humiliate himself. So I said that the Pink Panther was a failure because it did not launch the franchise. And it was one and done. I was wrong about that. I still think it was an epic fail overall, and that it didn't really create a franchise, but it did spawn a sequel. There was a second movie, but
And it was so bad, nobody saw it.
So yes, a canon correction. Yes, I was wrong, but I still stand by that it wasn't quite the success it should have been. Although one thing that does stick with me to this day from the Pink Panther was Steve Martin's pronunciation of hamburger. Hamburger? Hamburger? Like, I have to admit, so I guess that was one area that it was successful, is that credited that quote that I still use. So there was that.
It definitely had its moments, but that were about it.
All right, canon corrected. And let's move on to today's topic, because today, Steve and I will be your ticket to today's cinematic thrill ride. What is our topic today, Steve?
Well, Jeff, do you remember when summer movies were an event? There were lines around the block, sticky floors, and the kind of hype you could feel in your bones. Those days are over, maybe, but let's talk about why summer Blockbuster is on life support and, is it worth saving?
Well, I know that's what they're saying, because we had one summer where that didn't work out. And then, because, I know in the 2020s, like, it may seem like, because we have a relatively small sample size, so only halfway through. But this summer didn't have any huge blockbusters. And of course, 2020, during the pandemic, we didn't. So I think it feels that way. But it felt that way to me too. But then I looked back and on the 2020s in preparation for this episode, and there were some big movies as far as billion-dollar movies. Avatar, the Top Gun, Maverick.
Top Gun.
There was Barbie was huge. I don't know if it was Deadpool and Wolverine was huge. Inside Out 2 was huge. I mean,
so that's a good distinction to make, right? Because those were all very popular, very good movies, and some of those do qualify for that blockbuster tentpole style label. But I don't have I have release dates, but I don't have dates like in like if it was May, June, July, August. Like, were they? I know Barbie was a summer blockbuster for sure, because we actually took the girls to see it at one of the last drive-ins in existence. So we wouldn't have done that in the winter, obviously. But I wonder if the rest of those really fit that summer.
I did double check.
Did you double check?
I
What are
double
the dates?
checked. I actually did. Yeah. So there were some big December releases, so I made sure to leave those off. Because that's the other big time, right? And I know we're getting too close to Geek Court, so let's not do that.
We're not going to dive into it yet. So we could talk a little bit though about the history of
I think
the
let's
Blockbuster.
see where it started.
So I did a lot of and I'm going to say I did a lot of research. I did a lot of searching online, Google, ChatGPT, trying to find this information. I think you and I talked about this, so I think that we're on the same zone. The modern day, and it kind of crosses over summer blockbuster tentpole movie before they really knew what a tentpole was, started in like mid 70s with Jaws. 1975's Jaws was one of the first event movies that it came out in the summer, probably because it was a Massachusetts beach, Cape Cod beach shark movie. They wanted to put it out during the summer. And I don't know if that was happenstance or if they actually did it on purpose, but they really did push that movie, and they advertised it. They made it an event. They had people, they had merch and posters to go with it. The number of times I saw that poster with the shark coming up as the girl's swimming across, was ridiculous. But really, that's where it kicked off. But then the industry caught on pretty quick, because throughout the 70s, there's a stack of these movies. And I have my list here. Jaws was 75. Star Wars, the original Star Wars, came out in 77. Empire Strikes Back in 80. Raiders of the Lost Ark 81, E.T., Return of the Jedi, Ghostbusters, Back to the Future, Batman, all of these from 75 to 89.
So
They really kept
75, then
refining.
77.
Yeah.
But then from 77, it wasn't until one was Superman not the first was that the Christopher Reeve Superman? Was that not? I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I just try to figure it, because that came out in 78, but I don't know if it was a summer movie or not.
It was.
Okay.
So I was giving you the top 10 in terms of box office gross.
Oh, okay.
But 75 Jaws, 77 Star Wars, 78 Superman the movie, and then actually 77, also 77, Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And then of course we jump into the 80s, and it's funny because between Jaws, so Star Wars hit 77, Empire in 1980, and then Return of the Jedi 83. So within 7 years, they had 3 of the top grossing summer tentpole movies, and they really, you remember.
They're with us to this day.
Oh my goodness. But the merch that came with it. I remember going to see Star Wars in the movies, and then coming home and going out to buy action. I had the Luke figure, the Luke Skywalker figure. After Empire, I had the Tauntaun and the AT-AT.
Yeah.
All of this great merch. And they still merch like nobody's business today. But but there was something about it, because you didn't have a choice. Right? It was a summer blockbuster. And when you talked about it before, when they spread it out and did them in holiday releases and stuff too, you didn't have a choice. You had to go to the theater.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So this really, really pushed, and it goes into last week's conversation a little bit too. But
yeah, I think we grew up with this, so this seemed just natural, like summer and Blockbuster, like the big movies, so. Older generation, so the boomers, they didn't grow up with this. This was like a new phenomenon for them. For us, this just seemed normal, which is why I think for us, it feels like, oh, it's dead. Like we had 2020, and then we had 2025 without a blockbuster. So the summer blockbuster is dead, because for almost our entire lives that we're aware of pop culture and going to the movies, we've never seen this happened before, where we're just so used to it. And yet that's not, because I looked it up, what about the year I was born, 1970? What was there a big, I know, because they say Jaws was the first, and it seems weird to think that was what kicked it off. So I looked at what were the top grossing movies in 1970, and when were they released. Nothing in the summertime. what there was January, February, March, April, then it jumps all the way out of the summer into the big movies. And I don't remember all their names, but it went back into the winter. And I almost think, like, I just wondered, and it's just me speculating. I didn't actually do any research, but like maybe they were thinking, oh, the summer's not the best time for a movie, big movie. We're gonna, like, the summer, people are out, they're enjoying the outdoors. They don't want to go into a movie theater and sit in there on a nice summer day. And Jaws proved them wrong.
Yes, and I agree with you. I think that's exactly what it was. There was, and don't forget, from, I was just born a year before you, but from that time frame, 69, 70 into 1980, there was a conversion across the country of from more traditional behaviors and travel habits. And people didn't travel during school time; they only traveled during the summer. And they thought, okay, just it's too nice to be inside. So I agree with you. I think it's absolutely this idea that they felt the summer was, why would we bother? No one's going out. They're all at the beach. They're all on vacation. They're all picnicking and barbecuing. They're not going to come to a movie. And you're right. Jaws put a stamp on it and then said, nope, this is what we're doing. And again, I don't know if that was intentional. Obviously, the marketing for it was intentional, but I don't know if the timing was intentional. And I did look some stuff up, but I did not look that part up because I don't know if it was just because it makes sense to, release a shark beach movie in the summer.
I think it was, yeah. Like they definitely were. I used to teach films. I was a film studies teacher, previous job.
Previous life.
And it was, and I remember looking, and they wanted to prey upon, I think Jaws terminology, they wanted to prey upon that. And it worked. I mean, there were people that were terrified to go into the water. No, it was, and I think that's what they kicked off was a marketing genius campaign. Just, it worked so well. Like this summer, don't go into the water.
Yeah, but did they do it because it was a shark movie and it happened to be summer? Or did they do it, like, because you're not going to release a shark movie in January, right? Because people aren't going to the beach in January. It makes sense. It's like a kismet situation. Like, oh, it's a beach movie. We're going to release it in the summer. Did they do it because of that? Or was it the idea that let's take advantage of this ability to do stuff across the summer? Like, did they intentionally think they were starting a blockbuster tentpole situation, or did they just sort of get lucky?
I think that they think that it was intentional when they released it, because they did release movies in the summertime. I don't know if they necessarily knew what they had or that this was going to be such a huge blockbuster. But I think about, and I know we're supposed to be talking about summer blockbusters, but I think about, when a new way of advertising and marketing takes hold, like Blair Witch Project. I don't know if you remembered, but they were the first to do viral internet marketing and take advantage of that. And I think that's just what Spielberg and that team with Jaws did, is they were using marketing in a way with a movie that they'd never done before. And it just landed and worked because it was original and fresh. And now everyone just does it. Like they go on all the talk shows, they just, big marketing advertising push for a movie, making you feel that fear of missing out, that you've got to go see this thing. And then
it's funny. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just feel like it was brilliant for the time, and it worked and it landed, and then it inspired like this pattern that continued to this day.
Yeah. And I think that, because I wasn't sure while you were talking about it, I did my second live Google of all time. And I looked up Blair Witch. It was released in 1999. So internet, we talked about it a couple weeks ago, that it was a thing and it was available. So that did definitely play into it. But these movies, like if you go all the way back to the ones we've been talking about, this was pre everything. Like you didn't get to watch a trailer on the internet, even before cell phones where we could just scroll while you're walking down the street. We had to wait for previews to come out on TV. And if you weren't watching TV live when it happened, you missed the trailer. And Jaws came out. I was, what was it, 75? I was 6. And my parents took us to the theater. We went to a double feature at a drive-in. And I think they thought we were going to sleep through the second movie, which was Jaws, and we did not. And I was one of those kids who could not go into the water for a couple of years. I was even afraid of pools at night. Like, I didn't want to be in the pool if I couldn't see the bottom. And it was because of Jaws, which doesn't bode well for my parents' parenting. But it was
rated PG.
It should not have been. It should have been a PG-13. That was before the 13.
I don't think existed then.
No, I don't remember when it came up. But
And I honestly think it would have been PG-13 had that rating existed at that time. But they didn't feel like it warranted an R, so PG.
And let's be honest, most of the time when they rated stuff R, it was for sex. It wasn't violence. It was always sex, and even drug use and swearing. Some swearing was, yeah, but even in PG movies, I guess the swearing was probably an R thing too.
It was,
but,
yeah. Because I remember it was The Simpsons, and Bart like turns to the camera like it's breaking the fourth wall, and man, oh my God, now I can't remember what he said, but it was like the first time they're allowed to say whatever word it was. It wasn't an F-bomb, but
no, man. I remember what it was because it was even simpler than that. It was the word bitch.
Really?
Yes, because I remember the show Moonlighting with Bruce Willis, and I can see her face. I can't think of her name. And it was sort of like a detective comedy thing. It was his first big role.
That show.
And I remember, because I used to watch that show religiously because I loved him and I loved the show. But I remember the episode where they did it, because at the very end of one of the episodes, and I don't remember if he called her a bitch or if he said, don't be a bitch. It was the first time they said the word for them. They said the word bitch, and then like it kind of everybody did it. It's kind of like when South Park did the F-bomb thing, just a much milder. That's why you think it's probably something harsher, but I think it was just the word bitch.
It was something. Yeah, it wasn't an F-bomb, but it was like the first time, and they broke the fourth wall.
Let's take a trip through time. It's a geek flashback.
So we have to stop ourselves from doing this because we tend to start the flashback stuff before we say the flashback stuff. But it's all right. I think we're kind of in the same zone, right? So I've mentioned it a couple of times. Some of the stuff I've been looking up and like, what was it? Like, sadly, at 56 in 2025, I'm like, I don't remember a lot about it. But there were things about, I mentioned the previews. You didn't get to see previews, right? And being in that group, being in those lines, it seemed annoying at the time, but I remember the energy of the room. And we talked about it last time too with the streaming, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again today. But that's the thing that I miss the most, is that feeling of the anticipation. I stream everything, you know that, and so as soon as something's available, because I'm impatient and ADD, most of the time, I will just watch it as soon as possible. So I am a night owl. My family's in bed, so I'll like sometimes at 10 o'clock at night start a movie. They just dropped the new Jurassic World on Prime, and I will likely watch it coming up and it's still in the theater.
Yeah,
but
it's good.
I could go.
Yeah,
but
I saw it in the theater. It was good. Yeah, did a nice job. So, are we flashing back to a certain year that may have been a geek supernova?
We can talk about that. I think you're referring to 1989.
Yes,
because it was a very large glut of these movies.
Well, and I think, and there were other years where this happened, where it wasn't just one summer blockbuster, but there was like a series of them. And so I think, and in this year, 1989, that we're flashing back to is Batman, Indiana Jones: The Last Crusade, Ghostbusters 2, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids, just all like huge numbers for all of these movies. And that did happen periodically. And I think, and just, having, going to the theater, and I know that, part of the reason this worked is because there was no other way to consume it. Like you said, like, now you're already able to stream Jurassic World. It's still in the theaters. And, but now you can just, at that time you had to go. And all of those movies that I just listed off, those are all great movies. I mean, I remember when that Batman movie came out, it was in my mind, and taking nothing against Superman, but I felt like Christopher Reeve's Superman, but I felt like that was one of the truly great comic book movies that kind of transformational for comic book movies.
Again, it's at that same time when I think the industry started taking these properties more seriously. Superman was one of them, and I think this was number 2. And I don't remember the year now for Superman. I'll have to look it up. It was around that same time, and maybe a year or two before.
The Christopher Reeve Superman?
Superman the movie? 78? Yeah. Oh, is it 78?
Yeah.
Well,
so this was a decade later.
So they started, and maybe Superman was seen as an anomaly because he was such a popular character. Like, you didn't have to be a geek or a comic book guy to know who Superman was, right? He was the one character everybody knew. That's different now, of course, because everybody with the MCU and the DCU, all of these properties are out there, and there's characters who you and I go, they made a movie with that guy? You know what I mean? Like, and then obviously the X-Men movies we'll talk about at some point in time. But in '89, when Batman came out, I agree. It was a little darker. It was a Tim Burton, right? It was a little grittier. Superman the movie was very bright colors, bright sets. Even when Lex Luthor was trying to blow up the world, everything was, brightly lit. And it was sort of a happier tone to the movie. This was the first time and he was the Dark Knight, right? So,
yeah.
Do you know what's funny about those too is, so of the 4 movies you mentioned, 3 of them are parts of much larger properties, right? They are each in their own right a blockbuster, but obviously Batman, part of the DC universe, has been about 12 Batman movies. There were 3 Indiana Jones movies.
Yeah.
And Harrison Ford is the king of the freaking of running movies throughout stuff between Star Wars and Indiana Jones. He's got the most franchise things going on.
Yeah.
And then, of course, Ghostbusters, we talked a little bit about last week, where there's been like 3 different iterations. Almost except for one, every one of them had some sort of a sequel to it.
Well, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids had a sequel too.
It had one sequel, yes. So again, I don't want to make a Pink Panther problem. I don't want to can it correct.
But it also had a ride in Epcot, right? Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
Honey, I Shrunk the Audience.
An experience.
Right. Yeah. But that's a great point, because that's what all of these movies did, is they didn't just throw a great movie up and make a lot of money and walk away. They had merch. They had sequels. They had franchises. They had, well, look at Universal Studios. We didn't even talk about Harry Potter. Harry Potter's got like space in 3 of Universal's. Like, this movie created an environment.
Yeah.
Back to the Future had a ride. Jurassic Park had a ride,
Yeah.
These things keep these movies relevant in people's minds, so that when the next one comes out, they go, oh, I just did the Jurassic ride. Oh, I'll go see that movie now. It was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very cool.
Yeah. I actually, and I love that Honey, I Shrunk the Audience. And for those of you who may not have gone to it, but, it was 4D. It was one of the first 4D, because you put on your 3D glasses, but then it had all these effects going on, like
the chairs would move and air and water would come at you for different things.
Yeah, so those who have been to Disney Worlds, the successors of that would have been the Muppets 3D, which is now gone, and
Bugs
then
Life?
the Bugs Life, which is also now gone. So, but
hopefully they replace them with other 4D, because those were fun.
Yeah.
But I think it's time to get down to it. I think it's time to decide if
taking me to court?
this is even relevant or not. Do you think?
The fandom is divided. It's time for Geek Court.
So here we're talking about, is the summer blockbuster still relevant? Does it matter like it used to? I'm going to say I don't think it is. Again, just like last week, I hope I'm wrong because I love being in the theater. But you and I went to go see the Fantastic Four like in week 2, and the theater was almost empty. It was, you've already said it. We acknowledge this year has been a bad year for summer movies, but like even a few years ago with The Flash, which for controversial because of the star and a lot of other reasons, right? Whether you like him or hate him, the movie itself, I enjoyed the movie, but it didn't do great. And maybe it was part of the controversy that hurt him and hurt that movie. But I go back to the experience is different, right? I said it. I can watch Jurassic World later tonight. I don't have to go spend $12 and sit in a theater and spend $20 on popcorn. Like I can just go upstairs and pay $9.95 or whatever it is that Amazon's renting it for, and for much cheaper sit here in the comfort of my own home. Now that makes me a lazy bastard, let's be honest. But the simplicity and the ease of streaming sort of it's a slippery slope I'm sliding down. And I think it's unfortunately one that a lot of us are sliding down. I think people are they're opting to stream versus going out. And especially right now, the economy is crazy bad. So people are trying to squeeze their dollars. And I think it's just going to keep hurting us.
So I know it like this year makes it feel that way. And of course the 2020 makes it feel that way. And, but in fact, it's not correct. We have a number of films that, I mean, Avatar: The Way of Water, over $2 billion. Spider-Man: No Way Home, almost $2 billion. Inside Out 2 made almost 1 million.
1.7 billion.
Sorry, 1.7 billion. Yeah, 1.5 billion for Top Gun Maverick. About the same for Barbie, the Super Mario Brothers movie. Deadpool and Wolverine made over $1 billion. So I mean, there's a lot of billion-dollar property movies that came out in the 2020s. So it definitely. I know we have this kind of immediacy bias. If it didn't happen, within the immediate time frame that we're in, we feel like this is the way it is this year. Therefore, this is the way it'll always be, and has been. But it's I understand the feeling, and I think it's super disappointing for us who are Gen X geeks who love these movies, and to see like Superman not do as well as it should, the Fantastic Four not do as well as it should, it makes us fearful for the future. Like, what if we don't get these movies? What if we don't get the sequels? What if they just die out? And then, because we just talked about Batman coming out a decade after Superman, and there must have been a bit of a feeling after the Superman sequel, Superman 3 didn't do so well. Did that kill it? And then, Batman came back, so now we're okay. But then it was a fair amount of time between that Batman movie and the next big superhero movie. We had the X-Men movies did pretty good, but I mean, like the
They
Avengers
weren't blockbusters though.
Right, like MCU with Avengers and thereafter, like, I don't want that to die. I want that to keep going. So it's, it's kind of fearful, but I honestly think that it just feels that way. Better days are ahead of us.
Well, again, I hope you're right. I hope I'm wrong. I'm afraid that I'm not. I think because of the shift, we have an economic, social shift going on where, and maybe the tentpole blockbuster will be the last vestige of this. But we talked about it last week with comedy movies. Like, there's not as much coming out. Although, thank God, Naked Gun completely destroyed everything I said because it did great and got great reviews. But I think these are the anomalies, right? Because people will wait. People will just, they don't necessarily want to go. And one thing we didn't talk about last week, I thought about it while prepping for today, is in the last 5, maybe 7 or 8 years, it hasn't been that long, you can go online, buy a ticket, and pick a seat, right? So
Yeah.
you don't have to line up. Like,
Yeah,
even
that's
if you're
true, too.
excited for
Yeah.
opening night, when we were kids, even when we were teenagers, 20s and 30s, right? When we wanted to go to a movie on opening night, if you wanted to see The Dark Knight Returns, you had to get in line if you wanted a good seat. You couldn't wait, right? Because people would just be camping out overnight. They would be waiting for you. And now you could, even when you go to the theater, you can 4 days ahead of time say, oh, these are my 3 seats, 2 seats, this is where I'm going to sit. So you show up sometimes halfway through the previews and credits and stuff like that, you know?
Yeah.
So
I think
it
you're
does
dancing
change.
close to one of our future segments, though.
I am. And I'm teasing it, if you will.
But that would be a jump to evolution, but we got treasures to dig up first.
Yeah. No, what I was just going to say, we definitely have to talk about the stuff that came out of those movies.
Dust it off and geek it out, because it's a basement treasure.
They're digging in the wrong place.
So before we dive in too deep, you don't know how happy it makes me that we're talking Indiana Jones today, and I get to use that clip because it's one of my favorite clips of all time. But yeah, so we're talking swag, movie swag, and I'm gonna just defer it right over to you, because sitting
Yes.
precariously behind you is some of the newest swag you can get at the theaters.
Yes. So, as I said on a previous podcast, that I went and saw Superman at an AMC theater and outside of Boston, and that theater was packed. So I also have hope that things like this can still happen, that we can still have a packed theater. But something that AMC does that our local theater does not do is have these popcorn buckets. They're not cheap. We're my wife and I were huge Jaws fans, so I had to get it when I saw it there, and it's $42 for this
That's
piece
crazy.
of plastic. So, but I did it, and you know what? If it helps keep our theaters alive, I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna take advantage of that, especially when it's something that I want. So,
Well, and that's one of those things that helps the theater directly, because movie ticket sales don't help the theaters. I don't know how many people realize that, but almost every dime that comes in from ticket sales goes to the people who make the movies. So AMC is able to keep their theaters open by selling stuff like this. Yeah, I want to say it's 90 or 95% of all ticket sales goes right back to the distributor. So if it's a Paramount movie, Paramount gets most of that money. Movie theaters are food and beverage organizations. That's why popcorn and drinks are expensive, because that's most of the way they make most of their money, especially on first run movies. First run movies are mostly profit for the movie company. And I think it's after 2 or 3 weeks that they change the percentages. And that last time I looked it up was a few years ago. That could have changed. But yeah, most of the money they make is from stuff like that. So I think it's brilliant.
So one of my earliest memories was actually of swag from a movie. And I know we can count action figures, but I feel like that almost feels a little bit separate to me. Like, I think of promotional materials for swag. And I remember going to see, I looked it up, I was hoping it was going to be a summer blockbuster. It was not. It was a December blockbuster. It was Disney's The Black Hole, sci-fi movie. I think it was 1978. And I remember going to McDonald's, and it was like, the Happy Meal must have been relatively new at late 70s. And because it's stuck in my mind, like, Happy Meal, McDonald's. I didn't get to go to McDonald's that much, and the Happy Meal, like, it was just, my grandmother bought me, and I remember getting a black hole. There was like this little robot in the black hole, and it came in the Happy Meal, and I was so excited. I don't have it anymore. When we were growing up, these toys weren't considered collectibles, and they weren't thinking that they'd have great value everlasting. And to convince my parents to, when you're moving from one house to another, perhaps one state to another, oh, you want to keep all of this junk that now is like probably selling for hundreds of dollars on eBay. But because I remember having like all these Star Wars action figures, and I would not have ever sacrificed them. But the next thing I know, we're at this new house, and wait,
They're gone.
Where's that hammerhead Star Wars guy? Like where?
The head came out, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah, where is he?
I agree. I was talking before. We had the action figures. I remember when. All right, so this might be a false memory, but I'm going to say it anyway. I remember when McDonald's, I think it was just, maybe some of the other companies had it too. They actually would give you a glass, like a glass, not a plastic.
Burger
And it would
King
have like
had
the
that.
Star
awesome.
Wars logo on it.
Yes.
And it would have, and you're right, all this stuff would be probably worth a mint today. All of the stuff that you could get.
My wife's family's beach house, because beach houses, summer houses, they often keep those
But
things,
all the old stuff, yeah.
like you just take advantage, because you don't want, that's not where you want to your normal year-round stuff. It's just your vacation
That's
house.
not where we keep the nice china.
Exactly. They had this one of those old Batman from 1989, or no, it was the one with the Riddler, Jim Carrey.
Oh,
and
yeah.
it had like, I still remember the glass. It was a real glass.
It was a glass, yeah. Now they're plastic and they fall apart the minute you open them up. But yeah, I will say it's one of the first things they got right was the merch and the cross marketing with other companies, right? McDonald's was one of the first. Burger King ones are the first. That was, I think, before Wendy's even existed. But yeah, the ability to get these things and bring them home and have them in your house was phenomenal, because you brought home a piece of the movie. Look at your shark. You have a shark. Yes, $42 is a lot of money. Okay. But you're buying a piece of nostalgia that hopefully, and I know you'll keep it, and it will remind you of how much you enjoy it. You don't need to be reminded how much you like Jaws, but it's nice to see it. And
absolutely. And 42 is the meaning of life. So it
is
meant to
be life, the universe, and everything. In fact, can I make a weird admission? I didn't know there were 6 of those books. Douglas Adams had 6 books for The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy.
Yeah.
I did not know that until just recently. I'm actually listening to book 2 now.
Oh, nice.
I'm like, wait, how did I not know this?
Yeah.
I love the first one. I just somehow never saw the other 5. I don't know how. If you knew me, you would know. That's easy to figure out. Jeff is laughing because he knows it's easy. I miss shit all the time. But I think it's time to come out of the basement.
Yeah.
And talk about how things
we've evolved
are going to go. Where are we heading, Jeff?
From floppy disks to streaming clicks, it's Geek Evolution.
So yeah, 100%. We've been talking about it in this episode of things have changed. And, so because we've touched on it a number of times, I don't want to, hammer back on some of those earlier points, but just a quick recap. We didn't have a choice. We wanted to see these big movies. We had to go to the theater. And I love what you said about, one of the reasons we don't have to wait in line is we get to book our seats ahead of time. And at AMC, you didn't have to wait in line for popcorn if you didn't want to. You could book your popcorn delivered to that seat. So things have really changed. But
I think that's the end of civilization when that happens.
But now, but you're right. One of the reasons I wanted to get there early and wait in that line, was willing to wait in that line, was to get the better seat. Because otherwise, and it didn't work out for me for AMC because I bought my ticket day of. And I'm just so spoiled by our small theater, what hardly anyone goes to in our town, that I could, day of, get a decent seat. But I was like 3 seats back from the screen. And I still remember seeing the movie Breakin' 2 Electric
Boogaloo.
It was like an opening night, and it was like standing room only. Like they oversold Hey, you could dance.
So that's the point I was just going to bring up. You say that we can pick the seat you want to make sure you get a good seat, but in fact, you can make sure you actually have a seat. Right? Because there were times when we would go to the theater and get in line and have no idea how many seats were in that theater. And you didn't know if you actually were even getting in. So you could spend 2-3 hours at a line for a movie on opening night and still not get in to see it because every ticket was sold out.
Or
and then
not sit together.
Selling them. Right. Oh, yeah. It was one here and one here. And then it was, there's a million old jokes from comedians about what it was like to hunt and peck through the theater to find somebody, and then the negotiations, who's going to go back and get popcorn. But now you don't have to do any of that.
Yeah.
And it's nice, it's convenient, but there's no excitement. I think part of what I miss is the excitement of, and trust me, I've said it before, I'm a lazy bastard. I'll take comfort over excitement sometimes, or most of the time. But I miss that excitement of where we were.
Yeah. Those days, we're not getting those back. That is gone. We have these conveniences. We're not about to give those up, and that's I feel differently. I actually love having that ability to pick my seat. If I could get the popcorn delivered, when we saw Jurassic World, or the new the Rebirth, or the Scarlett Johansson one that came out, can't remember the exact title of it, but in the newest Jurassic, when we got there a little bit late into, and there was this huge line for popcorn, so I had to leave. I had to get there, sit down, wait for an opportunity in the movie that I felt wasn't going to be too much to miss, and went out to get my popcorn at that point. When the line had died down.
I think maybe it's time to let folks know they don't realize how easy it is.
Your kids don't know how good you've got it.
You want to go first?
So I know this is supposed to be a message to the new generation. I know you've got one. But I want to deliver a message to the production companies. This is for Sony and Disney and Warner Brothers.
Well, Feige's a big listener.
So in case this message gets to you, this is for you. Think about, as much as I believe the summer blockbuster isn't truly dead, think about a different paradigm. What if we didn't have some of the best movies all released week to week? Like that, maybe Fantastic Four would have even done better in April with no competition. No next movie coming out the next week that's going to steal their thunder. Like, really reconsider. Do you really have to all compete against one another for an ever shrinking amount of people? Like, maybe, just maybe, give us some of these big movies off schedule. You don't have to compete for such a small number. It would be like as if all the TV shows, of course, now I'm talking old school, like as if anyone is watching a show when it comes out. But when it did, like they didn't all come out on Thursday.
Night had to be the night.
They had some on Monday, some on Tuesday, some on Wednesday. Do the same thing. You don't have to release them all in June and July.
Yeah. Before I jump into mine, I agree with you. And it's funny. I see the same thing in comedy. Everybody's more worried about a measuring contest and I'm better than you and I can do this and I'll take your audience. And I've made this argument to other booking agents and people I've talked to for years. Why not get together and have a plan and say, because you're right, there is only X number of people who are going to do this. Granted, that X number is pretty big for like a Marvel movie, but if your Marvel movie is coming up against a good DC movie, it doesn't have to be a pissing contest, putting them out on the same weekend or week after. You're fighting for the same dollar, right? The same people who love Marvel movies are going to love the DC movies. And I know there's the battle back and forth or whatever, but those people are all still going. Why not give it a few weeks? 100%. I love that message. And I hope maybe I'll start emailing clips to these companies and go, stop being stupid. And
Yeah, because it's that paradigm. We
hashtag
just got used to it. But Jaws started it. But before that, like I said, when the year I was born, like every other month except the summers had the biggest,
Right.
numbers and the best numbers. It
Yeah,
doesn't.
you shifted the.
It doesn't have to be.
Yeah, they shifted the paradigm once. They can do it again. All right, so here's my rant. I actually prepped this one, so I apologize if I'm looking this way, but I'm just going to say it. Streaming has ruined the sacred art of waiting for a movie. Back in the 70s and 80s, you didn't just click play on a Tuesday. And you could sit in your sweatpants. You had to prepare like it was an event. You got your friends together. You picked an outfit. Right? Usually they were T-shirts, but you had to wait in line for hours. We talked about whether it was weather, because that was part of what we did. That was kind of a convention before the convention, because you would talk to other people, theories about the movie. You only saw one damn preview, so you didn't know the whole movie. We've talked about this guy, and I love it. Eric Voss. I forget the YouTube channel, but you can see most of the movie because he'll break it down for you line by line. We didn't have any of that. You swap theories, you quote trailers. It was 6 months between a trailer and a movie being released. And everybody that was waiting with you was hyped and psyched to do it. Now you can stream it on day one. I just said I'm going to do it with Jurassic, right? You can do it alone in your living room while you're watching, you're folding the laundry, you're doing something stupid, or wait for it to be less crowded, which is stupid because, again, that wasn't what the excitement was. You're supposed to be in a sold out room full of people laughing, cheering. When you saw Superman, you got to experience it. I mean, convenience is nice, but I think convenience is killing the thrill. We earned that opening night seat. We waited for that. We felt the movie was bigger and more important, and it meant more because we invested our time and our energy. And now you can watch on your phone while you're sitting on the bus. And I love the convenience, but I hate that it's taking, to me, some of the magic away from that theater experience.
Get off Steve's lawn.
That's my first true rant. That's the first time I've been like, cut the shit. And I mean it. But I can't just be a downer. We have to talk about some of the good things too.
It's critical hits and epic fails.
All right, I have to share a critical hit because my epic fails and epically failing because I'm getting them wrong. So I have to share a critical hit. Deadpool and Wolverine was such a critical hit for me. Just the fact like that, like it had so much for the true Marvel fan. If you're a casual fan, you might have even caught everything that was in there. But there was so much, and I doubt I caught everything, and that's what I loved about it. Like you're watching, like, oh yeah, I know that Wolverine. That's the Wolverine cover from this, and that's the Wolverine from this one, and he's got the classic Wolverine costume, and just this. Of course, I love the whole Deadpool character. That Ryan Reynolds did an amazing job with that, and thank God he was able to get that redemption, because those of you who might remember his mouth sewn shut, the Merc with a mouth sewn shut didn't make any sense. But that's what they did to him. So he got that redemption. It did so well in the box office for a rated R movie. It was like one of the most successful rated R movies ever, and it was so good. Every bit of it. Loved it so much. And so that's my what I feel like is such a critical hit, because it showed that you can make a movie that does huge fan service, and you don't have to apologize for who you are. Like it's rated R. They're like, we're just putting it out, and we're gonna make the thing that we've always wanted to make, and every Marvel Wolverine fan is gonna love. And as far as I can tell, it was I didn't see too many haters of that film, so that's awesome.
No, I'm gonna agree 1,000% with that. I've watched it probably 3 or 4 times now because I love it so much, and it hits everything that I would ever look for in any kind of movie. Because the two characters I love, It had the crossover from the worlds. It has the time travel. It's got all the Easter eggs. No, great choice. That's a great fucking movie. I can't think of a better. The only one I think of in the same vein is that Spider-Man No Way Home when all three of them are in it.
100%.
That kind of crossover thing,
Mhm.
same kind of idea, right? But
Yep.
Deadpool versus Wolverine.
It was that redemption, I think, was for my God, the Spider-Man that the second Andrew Garfield.
Andrew Garfield.
Like
Yeah.
I feel like he found out how many people really appreciated his Spider-Man because of that. And Tobey Maguire is well established, well known, very successful. Andrew Garfield's wasn't quite as well received, but definitely for us Spider-Man fans, his version was fantastic, and I think he finally got his flowers. So
He did. So all that's left is the fail.
I'm not saying a word.
I'm gonna put a movie name out there, and then I think it's kind of a double dip, right? Because I think the Flash, I just think it didn't do what it was supposed to do, right? It should have been Deadpool Wolverine. It should have been Spider-Man No Way Home, right? It should have been that level of crossover, right? Because it had all the elements. It had, oh my God, they brought back Michael Keaton as Batman. They had Supergirl, like the Flash.
Yeah.
They had all of these characters who should have gelled. And even him playing both parts as both Barrys, which I thought he did pretty good at. Like I've seen worse, I've seen better. Michael Keaton in Multiplicity, for instance, is probably one of my favorite movie acting roles of all time because I think he does an amazing job of splitting those characters. But it should have been a home run, and it was barely a ground out single. Not that I should be making sports metaphors, but you know what I'm saying? It felt like it should have been bigger. And I don't know if it was because of the controversy surrounding him at the time. But I just think it was a swing and a miss. There was so many. Well, it's like Pink Panther you talked about last week. All the elements were there. They just didn't fit.
Yeah.
They just had
Yeah, and actually some of the things you called out, well, I know not everyone would agree, but I thought that Supergirl was fantastic. I thought she did an awesome job. I thought Michael Keaton's appearance as Batman was fantastic. So there were some things in that really worked. Ezra Miller, is that the actor?
Yeah.
He was his version of the Flash, even take away the controversy, is okay. Like it wasn't, there was nothing fantastic of what he didn't bring anything to the Flash character or franchise that, like, I don't know how he won that role. Like Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman was fantastic. Jason Momoa's Aquaman, fantastic. It's kind of like Ben Affleck as Batman. Like he's fine. He's just not bringing anything. Like actually, and I know, we left him out last time at Robert Pattinson's Batman. At least he did bring something new and fresh, that kind of detective.
Yeah, you didn't have to like it, but it was there.
I actually did like it. So I'm glad that, I think he's getting one more shot at it. But it's not like he was a bad Flash, but he didn't bring anything to it. And when it's this big of a role, you've got to bring something to it. Otherwise, he would have been fine as just another member of the Justice League. Like he was fine in his cameos, but he wasn't able to make that character work. And there's other problems with that movie, but yeah, it didn't work out the way it should have.
Have you seen the Justice League Snyder cut?
Yes, I actually
version?
like it.
So his character in the original, crap, right? Popcorny, surface, no depth. When they recut it and put all the elements back in, where he meets Iris, and there's a lot of stuff. I think that actually did him some justice, which might have been part of why he got the role, because they saw, okay, there are these scenes where he can be a better character, a deeper character.
Yeah.
He wasn't just a scratch and sniff comic book surface guy. But yeah, I think the movie, he was lighthearted and funny, and he had some good moments, but I agree, just it wasn't there. But that brings us down to the last part of our show. So we keep putting it out there. Listen, check us out on all social media. Follow us, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Drop us comments. Like the show, rate the show, please. Anywhere you're getting podcasts. If you listen to us on one of the platforms, throw us a rating. It helps us out quite a bit. And originalgeekpodcast@gmail.com. Send us some information. We want to know what you think. Do you guys like the Blockbuster? Do you like going to the movie still, or do you prefer streaming? It might be dying, but as you can say, Jeff doesn't think so, and I'm hopeful that I'm wrong.
Yeah, and tell a friend, please. That word of mouth, that's one of the best ways that we're going to get, more listeners until we figure out the marketing genius that was Jaws or Blair Witch for our own show. That we, but even then, actually, now that I think of it, Blair Witch, I think a lot of it did end up being like, oh my God, did you see that? Because it, made it, had that. People talked about it, and that's what we need. We need that buzz. Give us that buzz. Help us buzz this thing out there.
Buzz us.
Buzz us around.
All right. Yeah, originalgeekpodcast.com. Send us an email. Send us a like. And we'll catch you next time.